Former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani. Mr. Mayor, good to see you, sir.
Good to see you, Sean.
Okay, you have been at the forefront. People forget that this committee was the first to discover the emails. But before we go there, let's talk about 600 requests for security denied. Let's talk about Hillary saying this is a terrorist attack not related to a video before she makes that narrative.
I think you have to divide this into several parts. So let's do first before the attack. There are either one or two explanations. Either she's the most incompetent Secretary of State in the history of the United States, 600 requests for security. She lets other people decide it. Well, one of them was a bombing in which the hole was so big that a tank could go through. It's inconceivable that the Secretary of State...
Well, the Red Cross had pulled out. The British pulled out. We had already had a firebomb at the embassy.
So she has to... We either have to believe that she's the most incompetent Secretary of State in history. In other words, 600 requests, a bombing of this facility, and she does nothing about it. And she leaves the decision to her subordinates, which means she's a non-existent Secretary of State. Or we have to believe that she's lying. And the reason they did it is because, as Marco Rubio has pointed out, they wanted a narrative that Libya was a success. And I think here's the big political problem for Hillary following this hearing. Hillary owns Libya now. Hillary exerted pressure on Obama to take out Gaddafi. Gaddafi was a neutered despot. He had given up his weapons of mass destruction. He was a problem for his own people. But his own people are going through much worse problems now than they did under Gaddafi. And she's the one who was the architect of that. And they wanted a narrative that everything was okay in Libya. That's why they didn't send in extra security. They didn't send in extra security because to send in extra security would have been an admission that they had created chaos. They had let hell break loose in Libya, Obama and Hillary, but with Hillary's advice. And I think that's why she did nothing about those 600 requests for security.
But she took Sid Vicious Blumenthal's emails. She responded to him, which it raises the question, 600? That's crazy. All right, then you're right to break this down into components before you just dealt with it.
Right.
During, I interviewed people that were told to stand down. They told me they were at the annex, but they didn't.
So I was on Sunday morning television with Susan Rice
that Sunday.
That Sunday, and I was sitting in the room getting ready to go on, and I heard her say, "This is because of the Muhammad video,
YouTube video."
And I said in a rather loud voice a word that begins with B, bull.
Yeah.
Because
you're known to be outspoken.
Okay. I knew it wasn't a spontaneous attack. The guys had submachine guns and large weapons. She knew it the moment it happened. Now, Susan Rice works for Hillary Clinton. Why didn't Hillary Clinton correct that? Why didn't she correct that?
They went weeks advancing this narrative.
So I have one of my assistant U.S. attorneys. They go into court. They say something false to the judge. I find out about it. I correct it. She didn't correct it. She let it stay out there for 14, 15 days.
The evidence today, Clinton emailed her family that night and said it was an al-Qaeda-like group that did this. The next day, she told the Prime Minister of Egypt, "We know that the attack in Libya had nothing to do with the film. It was a planned attack."
So then how could she have her subordinate go on television 2 days later?
Well, wait a minute. I got a montage of them. Let me go to the montage to remind people. So they knew that day and the day after it was a terror attack, but this is the lie they told you.
We've seen rage and violence directed at American embassies over an awful internet video that we had nothing to do with.
We have no information to suggest that it was a pre-planned attack. The unrest we've seen around the region has been in reaction to a video that many Muslims find offensive.
What sparked the recent violence was the airing on the internet of a very hateful, very offensive video that has offended many people around the world.
As offensive as this video was, and obviously we've denounced it and the United States government had nothing to do with it, that's never an excuse for violence.
And Jim Jordan confronted her over this today, an amazing rebuke of what they had been telling you, the American people.
You're looking at an email you sent to your family. Here's what you said. At 11 o'clock that night, approximately 1 hour after you told the American people it was a video, you say to your family, 2 officers were killed today in Benghazi by an al-Qaeda-like group. And most significantly, the next day, within 24 hours, you had a conversation with the Egyptian Prime Minister. You told him this: we know the attack in Libya had nothing to do with the film. It was a planned attack, not a protest.
Wow.
Well, this actually then seals the case in the sense that before, you don't know whether she's incompetent or she's lying. Now we know they're lying because they knew from the very, very beginning that this was a spontaneous attack, one they hadn't prepared for, one they should have been prepared for. It happened on September 11, Sean. My goodness. So the reality is this proves that what's going on here is there's an election. They don't want the narrative out that they failed in Libya. Now, a couple of years later, they failed even worse. Hillary owns Libya. In this presidential campaign, if the Republicans don't take Libya and just put it right on Hillary,
where it belongs,
then we haven't carried out a campaign. She's running on her record as Secretary of State. Her record as Secretary of State is incompetent and then lying for political purposes in order to cover up what actually happened.
Here's the amazing thing. Nobody knew about the private emails or the private server because of the committee. I'm going to put up on the screen because
now you're getting into my 13 possible
I think
violations.
You're actually up to 16.
I'm up to. I found 2 bonus ones. Yes.
Okay, 2 bonus ones.
Yeah.
But now the FBI, the president signals on 60 Minutes that he doesn't think she compromised national security, which the FBI, I know from my sources, is furious about.
Well, they should be furious about it. The president shouldn't be commenting on an ongoing investigation and telling them the result. Imagine the pressure about it. I mean, first of all, right on the face of all those facts is it is a crime to handle sensitive, confidential, and classified material in a grossly negligent manner. That wasn't a grossly negligent manner?
Of course it was.
I mean, it's almost a definition of grossly negligent to put it on a private server in a garage.
No, in a bathroom. I hate to correct the record.
Right.
All right, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Coming up, Hillary Clinton claims Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Coming up, Hillary Clinton claims increasing security at the consulate in Benghazi before the terror attack that killed 4 Americans was not part of her job as Secretary of State. We have reaction from a family member who actually lost a loved one there. And then later tonight.
Why has no one been held accountable? How come not a single person lost a single paycheck connected to the fact that we had the first ambassador killed since 1979?
All right, so Hillary pressed Hillary Clinton on that very subject. Remember, nobody was held accountable. Watch this.
Not a single person lost a single paycheck connected to the fact that we had the first ambassador killed since 1979. How come no one has been held accountable to date?
Well, Congressman, the Accountability Review Board pointed out several people working in the State Department who they thought had not carried out their responsibilities adequately, but they said that they could not find a breach of duty. But there was a process that was immediately instituted and which led to decisions being made.
Yes, ma'am. The decision was to put these back at full back pay and keep them on as employees. That was the decision that was made as a result of the processes that you